So I wanted to welcome you to the Pink Elephant podcast. This is an honor. This is really, I am so grateful that you agreed to do this.
Thank you so much. The honor is mine.
Richard Aryeh Ho. Richard or Aryeh?
Either one is fine. I guess it depends on the audience. I code switch a lot. So like when it's a Jewish audience, it's usually Aryeh.
Okay.
Outside the Jewish world, it's Richard. And then there's the in-between, the people that know me as both. So either one, whichever one is good for you.
Okay. So I know you as Aryeh.
Yes.
And when I went to get your books, which we are going to talk about, and which you are going to sign.
Absolutely.
I went on Amazon and I'm typing in Aryeh Ho and nothing's coming up. I'm like, I know he wrote books.
That is, a bit of an impediment for the people that know me only as Aryeh. So I have to do better marketing there to get the word out.
And we're going to take a minute. This is the first time I get to do this, but I finally have enough merch. People have been sending. I have these two cute little intertwined elephants, my pink elephant, my bracelet. And so I just wanted to take a minute. In our religion, we say if you don't have gratitude, you don't have anything. So to just thank all my supporters and viewers and who are starting to really, I guess, help us brand. Is that what it's called?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and so very grateful to them. And thank you for being part of our community.
Of course,
Appreciate
absolutely.
it. So I did do some research, looked up your website, a little bit about you. To say that you're fascinating is an understatement.
I find myself rather boring, so I'm happy to talk about my story, but I've always found that to be interesting because as a convert and as an author, there's a lot of things to talk about, but my personal story I always felt was a little bit boring. It's not the sort of fireworks conversion story that you might expect. So I feel like I disappoint people when I tell them the story, but we can get to that.
Yeah, I think you're short selling yourself. The first thing I did, and that's impressive to me, is you're a Harvard grad.
Yes. I try not to advertise that too much.
Today we don't.
Right.
Well, when you were there, I mean, you don't have to tell me how old you are because I'm 35, and so you're at least
of course,
20.
yes.
Right. So was it had to have been different?
It was, I was different. I wasn't Jewish yet. So okay. I was there. I was class of 2002. So I was there turn of the century. And at the time, I was starting to get interested in Judaism, but I wasn't there yet. I was starting to discover things and starting to do some reading and meeting some people, but I hadn't really dove into it yet. So my experience there was really outside of the realm of the Jewish community. I know it's there. And now looking back, I realized that it was just sort of under the surface and I wasn't aware of it. But when I was there, it was really, from the perspective of, a kid who grew up born in New York and grew up on the East Coast and going to a school like Harvard. My school had sent a couple of people in the past, so it wasn't completely foreign to me. But it was a bit of a culture shock just because it's Harvard and, everybody there is genius level. And that's not an exaggeration. It was the kind of thing where I felt it was a really formative experience for me because it put me in my place. It made me humble in a way that I don't think any other experience could have because, in high school, I did well and, academically I achieved. And, to get into Harvard, you have to have a certain level of achievement. But then you get there and then you realize you are I was certainly at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to intelligence level and achievement there. All of my classmates and my dorm mates were just so completely amazing as far as all of the things that they had done in their lives. And I felt very, very inferior compared to that. And I think that was great for me because, as a young man of, late teens, early 20s going into that situation, it really prepares you for the world because you get into the world and you realize you're not the top of the,
the heap.
Exactly, right. So you need that humbling experience, I think. So that's what it was for me. As far as the politics and the Jewish stuff that's happening there now, that was completely not within my realm of awareness. So it's interesting to look back now. And I get questions all the time, from people just saying oh, what do you think about this? And it's hard for me to answer because I'm not there anymore, So it's, I do feel a lot of, as you were saying, gratitude for, the experience that I got there. But at the same time, it's also it's distant now.
Where in New York did you grow up?
Westchester. So I was born in Manhattan. I lived in the Bronx for the first few years, and I think it was first grade, we moved out to the suburbs. So I grew up in Westchester. Mm-hmm.
So Westchester, which city in Westchester?
Pelham, which is often confused with Pelham, in the Bronx.
Okay.
It's different. It's separate. It's one of the towns that's next to New Rochelle and
Oh.
Mount Vernon.
Okay.
It's like that. Those three towns are all together.
Beautiful there.
So yeah, it's really nice, and it was sort of very idyllic suburb experience, and that's where I grew up. So that really shaped me in a lot of ways.
Your parents are American or?
So they were from Hong Kong originally.
Okay.
So they came to the U.S. in the late '70s. So my sister and I were both born here in the U.S.
Okay, so you have one sister.
One sister, yes.
Okay. So I read on your webpage, and correct me if I'm wrong, and that your first exposure to Judaism was a friend's bar mitzvah,
Yes.
which was Star Trek.
Star Trek themed, yeah. So
I mean, I was laughing.
oh my gosh, it's I
funny.
love that story because like it's so interesting where people's first touch points with Judaism is, like, when you're not Jewish yourself.
Right.
And so I grew up in Westchester, and like, New York being a very heavily Jewish area, but not necessarily always religious.
Right.
So the town that I grew up in was certainly not like an Orthodox Jewish community. It was, a lot of Reform or non-affiliated Jews. And so my classmate, I was invited to his bar mitzvah, and I remember it being just a spectacle. First of all, he was a child actor, so he's actually pretty famous. So he was the kid in Weekend at Bernie's.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was the kid, and he also
Okay.
he went on to become a director. He directed the most recent Borat movie.
Wow.
So he's pretty well, well known in Hollywood. But at the time he was just a kid. He was my classmate, and he had a bar mitzvah. It was a Star Trek themed bar mitzvah, and I remember just walking in, seeing these cardboard cutouts of like the Star Trek characters, and I was a big Star Trek fan growing up. So to me, I for the longest time associated Judaism with Star Trek, for whatever that means. Like, actually, there are a lot of connections there, but I didn't know it at the time. It was just sort of like what I knew, and so that was my first Jewish experience. And then, like, obviously, like as I grew older, I met more people and I experienced more things. I think the second most formative Jewish experience I had was at Harvard. At the time, I was already starting to get interested in the religion, and I was invited to a bris. So my teaching assistant for one of my classes had a baby boy, and so she invited all the students to the bris. And I remember that was my first real experience, as an adult with Judaism. And I remember being just so impressed because on the surface, I knew what was happening and screaming baby and all that. But like, I was just struck by how beautiful it was, it was so like touching, the community and the family and just the significance of the event, and that made an impression on me as well, and a much more formative stage when I was starting to explore it myself. So yeah.
And that is amazing. And the Star Trek thing, like, well, Leonard Nimoy is Jewish, right?
Yes,
and then
yes.
they do the this, which is like
yes,
the
right.
sign of the priest.
Exactly, right.
Okay,
Right.
I'm the only kid who did not like Star Trek. I tried. I grew up in Detroit. I tried to watch it. I was like, I cannot.
You either get it or you don't. I mean, like,
it's not. It's
yeah.
like I have a hard enough time with reality and like all this like space stuff
Yeah.
and fantasy.
No,
It's
I
like
get
the
that.
two genres I can't deal with.
For sure.
I try to just keep myself. I like a good rom-com. I'll do historical
Yeah,
fiction, but
yeah.
all this like space stuff, I'm like, I can't.
No,
cope
honestly,
with that.
reality is strange enough in some ways. But
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I know there's this whole Trekkie community.
Yes.
And I hear your story, and I'm just struck. Like, you come from an unbelievably rich tradition. The Chinese tradition is so full and so old and so beautiful. So I like Judaism, it's great, but what pulls you? Because your tradition is equally rich, equally deep.
I think that's one of the things that drew me to Judaism is the fact that I saw a lot of similarities between the two cultures. You're talking about two extremely ancient and like long-lasting cultures. Yeah, the book, right?
Book.
It's the physical manifestation of that connection. I think for me, as I was getting interested in Judaism, what drew me in first was the fact that there were so many of these parallels that I was just discovering one after the other. I mean, like there's on the a high level, there's a lot of values that are shared, family and respect for elders, and this idea of education and making something of yourself, and
Yep.
all of that stuff is very familiar. But then also nitty-gritty details. Like I remember I saw there was a scientific article about where Jewish men put tefillin corresponding to Chinese acupuncture points. And I remember when I saw that,
Really?
I was like, wow, that's like a very clear connection that like you wouldn't have expected. And so it's things like that that really started building a case for why I should explore this more, and so that's largely why, when I was looking at other religions, because I grew up secular. Know, there was no religious upbringing whatsoever. My dad's not religious at all. My mom has some Buddhist practices that she follows, but it was nothing that she passed on to us. It was nothing that my sister and I did growing up. So, growing up completely secular, I never had this yearning for a spiritual connection or anything like that. So, but as I got older, and I was at Harvard, and I was an English major there, and one of the trickle-down consequences of that is I had a lot of free time. Most of my friends are.
Can you repeat that? You have a lot of free time at Harvard as an English major?
As an English major, because
you have to read thousands of pages and write thousands of pages. I mean,
the dirty secret is you don't have to do all the reading, and if you're good at writing, you just bang it out, and it's fine. It's to me, I spent most of my time doing other things. So it was reading about Judaism and things like that. So most of my friends were pre-med and they were slammed. Pre-law, they were slammed. So most of my friends were actually very deeply into the academics of it, and I was an English major. And as an English major, that's what you're good at. So it comes easily and naturally, and so I had a lot of free time. So that's how I had the time to start doing the exploration.
So just digressing for a second, who's your favorite author? Not that I would.
That's a hard one. In what genre? What age group? That's
okay. Forget it.
We can put that aside.
I can already see that's not a good question for an English major. It's not spit out
Right.
But okay. So you're in Harvard. You're starting to explore. You tell your parents. You're like, hey, this is.
I don't think I told them until later, because it wasn't serious then. It was. I think it was after graduation, when I was back in New York and working, that I really started getting seriously into exploring what it would mean to convert. So it wasn't until then that I told my parents about it, because there wasn't any need to. But once I did start realizing that I was walking down this path, I needed to get them on board, because that's not the kind of thing that you can do without, having your parents at least be aware of it. And I'm blessed that they have been so supportive about it from day one, but I know that's not always the case. And you find, not just with converts, but with Bali Tshuva, Jews that did not grow up religious and they become religious later on. I've heard so many stories about parents having major problems with that,
right.
And it's a tragic thing, to go into this lifestyle and embrace it, but then not have your family support you. It's very. I don't think I could have gone through with it if it wasn't for my parents supporting me. So I'm very thankful about that.
So we just passed the holiday of Pesach,
Yep.
Passover, and my husband makes this whole big deal with toys and things for the kids, get the kids involved. I'm telling you this for a reason. So he passed out T-shirts, and one of them says, I have more than 4 questions, which was my favorite T-shirt. So did your parents have more than 4 questions? What are you doing, and why are you doing this?
And
what
for
is
sure.
wrong, and
for sure,
are we not enough?
I think it's they've always been open-minded. The fact that they let me be an English major, I think, is one. I mean, the typical stereotypical Asian parents thing is you have to be an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor, right? And I didn't have any interest in any of those.
That's pretty Jewish too.
It is.
That's
that's another connection between
a doctor,
the two. Yeah.
A lawyer, or if you're really bad, you're an accountant. Okay, we'll cope.
So that's 100% true, and I think that's. I should have known from that they were already very open-minded compared to a lot of Asian parents, and so they had questions, but I think they were more just curiosity and not so much defensive. The one area that I was most nervous about was the laws of kosher.
Yeah.
So I was, and yet another connection, Chinese moms and Jewish moms. If you tell them that they can't cook for their kids, that's you can't have that. So
right.
So that was a conversation that I was dreading a little bit. But once I started explaining what the actual parameters are, you can come to my kitchen, you can use my cookware, you can use my ingredients, all of that stuff. It eased it a little bit. And to this day, she's sad that she can't cook for me in her home. But I think it's one of those small sacrifices that she's willing to make.
Where did you start learning? Where was your conversion?
So it was the actual official process began. I had already done a lot of reading, and I was, you have to get a certain baseline of knowledge before you make this monumental decision to actually convert. And I decided that I wanted to do an Orthodox conversion because that's just sort of how I am. If you're going to do something, do it 100%. And I had this worry that if when I eventually have kids, what would the status be if it's not an Orthodox conversion, right? So just on a practical level, I wanted to make sure that there were no questions. So once I made the decision I was going to convert, I literally Googled Orthodox rabbi, and then put in my zip code, and then like found the closest one. I found one in Westchester, and I set up a meeting with him. And the classic thing where you're supposed to be rejected 3 times.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. I think they were getting craftier about it. Like they don't like it's not like a straight up rejection. I think what happened was there were like 3 or 4 missed appointments. Like things got changed last minute. Like so like it took me a while to actually get in the room with him. And I think that was his way of doing like the rejection thing. Because like if you're not persistent, then you're just going to give up. And and so I think I never asked him this, but like I get the sense that that's what he was doing. But I eventually got to meet him and explained what I was doing and why I wanted to explore. And he was very welcoming. And I remember going to his community for Shabbos a few times. And as I got to know the community, he got to know me. And he did something that at the time I didn't realize how amazing this was. He pulled me aside and he said, "I don't think this is the community for you." So his community is a very, very modern Orthodox community, very far to the left as far as like observance and things like that. So he sensed that I was sort of like edging more towards the right in terms of my own observance. And so he encouraged me to find a community that's more aligned with where I was headed. And that's actually how I ended up in Passaic. So Passaic is where I live now, where we both live. And it's the kind of community where as an Orthodox community, it is very much in the center of things in the New York area, or in New York, New Jersey area. But at the same time, it's probably the most diverse Orthodox community you can find. And that was important to me because, like, obviously, any room that I walk into in a Jewish setting, I'm going to be standing out just because of the way I look. And it's something I've dealt with from the beginning. And I just felt much more comfortable in Passaic than in other places. Not to say I've ever encountered like outright racism or anything like that, but I think there is a certain level of when you walk around Passaic, like it's not so unusual to see somebody like me. So that was cool for me, like going into this lifestyle and being very conscious of the fact that I was different. I valued a place that was a little bit more open-minded and diverse.
Accepting.
Yeah.
Did you do Israel?
So I didn't do Israel until much later. Yeah, I've been twice now, but it was those were both post-conversion. The first time was actually post-marriage. Yeah, so yeah, and it was not for the greatest reasons. We went for my brother-in-law, my wife's brother passed away, and so we went for the shloshim. Yeah, not for the funeral, but it was. So that was my first time in Israel, and I was ready, like well into obviously my Jewish journey, but to experience it at that stage, I think was very interesting. And I finally got a chance to go back under better circumstances. Just 2 years ago, I went as part of a PJ Library author trip to Israel. So there's a program that PJ Library, I don't know if you're familiar, but it's an organization that sends free Jewish children's books to anybody who requests it.
Really?
So yeah, it's funded by this Jewish philanthropist, Harold Grinspoon, and he's just incredible. And he wanted to make sure that all Jewish kids out there had appropriate Jewish stories at all times. And so this organization has been around for a number of years, but in recent years they've started doing a lot of like outreach to authors and trying to encourage more Jewish stories to be written. And so I was part of a cohort of authors who got to go to Israel for like an 8-day trip, and we toured around, and it was just amazing.
That's beautiful.
So that was fantastic, but also it was interesting because it was from the perspective of storytelling because we're all authors, and so yeah, to this day, a lot of the people that I met on the trip are like really great friends, and we've stayed in touch. But yeah, so those are my 2 Israel experiences, but they came later on.
Oh, and so what year did you actually convert?
I converted in 2007.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you learn Hebrew? Are you learning Hebrew?
Yeah. I mean, like it was one of the things I knew that from the beginning, even before I started the conversion process, I wanted to learn how to read. And the speaking, conversational modern Hebrew is not something I've mastered yet, but it's
neither have I.
Yeah, it's not easy. Not easy.
I can order from a menu.
Yeah.
I can ask for a bathroom, and I can basically make sure I don't get run over.
Yes. Yes.
But like a kindergartner,
Yep.
we went to my husband's family. We were just there in February. We went to his sister, and her little granddaughter is there, who's the cutest thing, and she starts prattling away at me in Hebrew, and I'm like, I don't understand what she's
I can't
saying.
even follow. It's
All
too
I kept
fast.
hearing is like, don't Debbie. And Debbie, I got that part.
Yeah.
I'm like, Masha, what? Please tell me what she said. I was so embarrassed. I'm like, she's 5 years old, the cutest thing. So you studied English and you're an author.
Yes.
Is that what you set out
No.
to be?
No, I set out to be a journalist, I think. Well, actually, when I first got to college, I thought that I would do something in computers or something like that. And then I realized I wasn't good at it. I took a computer science course in my freshman year, first semester, and I failed the first midterm so badly that I was in danger of actually flunking out of school. Like if that grade had stayed on my transcript, I would have been asked to take academic leave, I think, because I would have failed the class.
Oh, my.
So I dropped it right away. I dropped it right at the deadline for dropping it. So that was like the first month of college when I made this discovery. And then I pivoted at that point to English, and I realized this is what I am good at. I can write. I like reading, and so let's just lean into that. And so that's when I made that decision. But after that, I decided there's not a whole lot outside of academics. There's not a whole lot you can do with an English degree that isn't like. I mean, there's a lot you can do, but it's not something that like there's not like a very clear path for you. So I decided that journalism was respectable and a decent salary, and maybe I should try that. And I did that for a couple of years after graduation. But I didn't like the lifestyle. It was too intensive as far as travel and deadlines. And
who did you work for?
So I did the first couple of places. The first magazine I worked for was a very it was a comic book magazine. So like we covered comic books and video games and movies and things like that. So it was a lot of fun, but it wasn't substantive at all. I didn't feel like I wasn't working for the New York Times. So like I felt like I wasn't doing anything noble. So I went to a different magazine that was covering the creative side of the advertising industry. So I did that for a couple of years. But at that point, I decided I wasn't into journalism anymore, and I wanted something more noble. And I fell into education. So at that point, I found a job with a company that makes animated videos for kids for classroom use. And they were looking for a scriptwriter. And so it sort of tapped into my aspirations to be a creative writer, because I had always thought that I wanted to write movies or novels or things like that. But when this came up, I said, this is amazing because like you can actually get a paycheck for doing this, and it's in education. So so I jumped at it, and I did that for a long time. I was at that company for about 13 years.
Oh, wow.
And then now I'm working for another company that's also education, and sort of like it's called EdTech. It's educational technology. So so that's what I'm doing. I love it because it's education. It sort of overlaps a little bit with my writing, my children's books, because it's a similar audience. It's not exactly like most of the audience that I'm working for in my day job is like a middle school audience, but these books are more for like little kids. For now, I'm expanding, but it's
Okay.
So far these are all picture books. Yeah.
Let's get to the books.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so once I figured out what your name was, I actually called my friend who Danielle Zimmerman.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I'm like, I can't find his book. She's like, you're putting it under the wrong name. I'm like, I'm putting it under the wrong name. and then I ordered 2 of one because I couldn't find it. And then I called Barnes & Noble. So I actually have another copy, which I'm going to give as a gift to one of my grandchildren. Yeah, so I have 2 copies. I think of this one, of the cat, of the cat book. Is this the first book?
No. So okay. So actually, none of these are the first book.
Oh, no.
I have 6 books out currently. The first book was published in 2019. It's called Red Rover.
Wait. I need to get the books. Red Rover.
Red
okay.
Rover. Yeah. So it's about the Curiosity rover on Mars. So yeah. So that's it's a nonfiction science book, but it's not actually nonfiction because I made the rover like a character. So it's sort of anthropomorphic, but not exactly. So that was my first book, and then the second book is called The Lost Package. And it follows a lost package on its journey to its destination, and that's
through Amazon.
Not Amazon. My father worked for the U.S. Postal Service for many years, and so I grew up with mail, and so this is kind of a tribute to him and his career. So I had always been fascinated by what happens to a package when it gets lost. The reality is most of them just get lost and they're never found again. But I wanted to take a more optimistic angle and follow a package that gets picked up by serendipitously by somebody who is on the way to somewhere near the recipient and is able to deliver the package after that. So that's The Lost Package. That came out in 2021, right at the start of COVID actually. And then the cat book was the third book that came out 22. And then 2 New Years came out the next year, 2023.
Oh, really?
Yes, and then Taste of Home came out last year, 2024. Last year there was another book actually. It's called If Lin Can. It's a biography of Jeremy Lin, the basketball player. So those two came, Taste of Home and If Lin Can came out last year.
So I totally did not do this right. I thought this was 1, this was 2, and this was 3.
No, yeah, no.
Okay, so from the ones I have, this is 1? This is 1.
This is 1. Yes.
Okay, so Year of the
Cat. Yes.
Year of the Cat. Okay. So here was my take on Year of the Cat. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, you can roll your eyes and be like, gosh, she's such a therapist. She reads into everything. I read this one, and my immediate thought, first of all, I have to say to you that whoever is doing your illustrations...
I have been blessed with amazing illustrators. Yeah. Every single one of them, yeah.
I want to show... My daughter's an art therapist, my daughter Liba, and I want to show these to her.
Amazing.
When she was growing up, she was obsessed with the books by, I hope I said this right, Goi Fujikawa. Have you ever heard of him?
I have, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And every book that he did or illustrated was in our bookcase, and she was literally obsessed with his work as a kid, tiny kid.
Yeah.
And I always tell her that I think she patterns a lot of her drawings after those books.
It's very possible. I mean, like kids, especially artistic kids, they see what they like and then they sort of internalize it. Yeah.
Total. And he has his kids are just, they're beautiful. They're cherubic, pink-cheeked, round-faced, hair flying, just exuberantly happy kids. Look, he's wonderful stuff. But your graphics and your illustrations are incredible. So I read this book, and here's my take on it, and tell me I'm the crazy one. I immediately thought of the story of Joseph and the coat and the brothers.
Right.
Because it talks about this rescue, and they start out with a whole bunch of the people, and then one by one, because they're selfish, they fall off.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then at one point in the beginning, it says like one of the animals says, "Well, it's not my fault," or "I just."
Yes.
And I was like, oh, he patterned this after the story of Joseph.
You know what? It's so interesting that you say that. I didn't, but it's. I get
Welcome
this
to the world of therapy.
Well, but it's so fascinating because I've gotten this question as an author before, like especially in when talking to other Jewish authors or people who are interested in Jewish stories, like, and they ask you like, how do you make sure Judaism is reflected in all of your stories? And so I never thought about the question before, but I think like, out of all the books that I published, really only 2 of them are Jewish so far. But I would say even the non-Jewish ones have, I mean, it's going to seep in, like, the value system or like, some of the universal themes that you find throughout Judaism and also other cultures. I think that stuff does come through. So it's absolutely valid. You can that you saw that. It's interesting because I patterned this exclusively on the Chinese zodiac story. So I grew up with this. So the story is basically these animals, 13 animals that are invited to the Jade Palace. The Jade Emperor is like this figure in Chinese mythology. And so they're invited to the palace, and there's a race to get there. So whoever gets there first will be assigned the first year of the Chinese zodiac. So that's how you get like year of the rat and year of the ox and things like that. So so the order in which they finish the race is the order in which the years go. And I grew up and Chinese kids will know their birth year and just sort of like become like the animal becomes their favorite animal. So I grew up loving monkeys because I was the year of the monkey. And
so it's the rats first?
The rats first, and it's in the order of on the cover. So it's rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, sheep, monkey, rooster, pig. So the rat finished first, and the cat never made it. So that's the whole point. Is the cat?
Is that true in Chinese? This is true.
The story, as the story goes, the rat betrayed cat by pushing cat into the river.
Yes.
And so the cat never made it. That's why there is no year of the cat. At least not in Chinese zodiac. There's the Vietnamese version of the story does have a cat, but in the Chinese version there's no cat, and that actually explains why to this day cats hate rats. So that explains sort of like the animal side of it. But that's so I always thought that was horribly unfair to the cat. And so I wrote this book as a way to explore what happens after the fact, after that famous story. Yeah.
You know, there's a song called "The Year of the Cat."
I know, yeah.
It's a great song.
Yes, yes.
Just as you said it,
it's funny.
From the 70s.
When I was waiting for this book to come out, when I was Googling to figure out where it was going to be, that song kept coming up, and I was like, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for my book. Yeah. So.
Listen to the song. It's a great song.
I know. Yeah.
So that's what this is about.
That's what
this is based. Okay, and I'm like, oh, it's Joseph and the brothers, and they're all,
It could very well be, but I think it's the idea of there is some redemption at the end, but I think there's also this very unclear, ambiguous ending where you don't know what happens to Rat, and I did that on purpose because kids like to be mischievous and they'll draw whatever conclusions they want. But yeah, there's an element of sort of revenge, but not really. Which at some point the parallel with Joseph and the brothers falls away a little bit because they can't make it fit exactly, but a lot of these universal stories there are going to be elements of those stories and other stories. Right. It's unavoidable.
Then we go to
New Year's. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So this is my first Jewish book. Okay. And
by the way, I am prepared, and then you have to bring your other three because I am now being a groupie. Okay. This book made me cry.
So this is one of those things where I started my journey to children's books in a very sort of roundabout way, and when I was first writing stories, I wrote a lot of stories, and not all of them are good, not all of them have made it into to become books, but I did know that at some point I wanted to write books about my identity, so specifically my mixed identity, being both Chinese and Jewish, and it took me a while to get comfortable enough and confident enough to be able to write it properly. So I finally felt I was ready, and I wrote this, and it was really inspired by the fact that I realized as we're celebrating all these holidays, and we have kids now. Right. They're growing up with both sets of holidays in a way that I never had. So I grew up and I was adult already when I converted to Judaism. So for me, I made a very conscious choice to combine the two cultures, but they didn't make that choice. It just is their life. And that to me was so beautiful because they were growing up with this mixed tapestry, and I wanted to capture that in this book. So
you celebrate the Chinese holidays with your parents and your family?
Yeah, I mean, there aren't actually that many that I celebrate. I think Chinese New Year is probably the only one. There are others that even growing up we weren't really into Mid-Autumn Festival or anything like that. I mean, we would have meals and stuff, but it wasn't a huge deal. Chinese New Year is the one that is the universally celebrated one.
So first I want to point out before I get into it, this won I need my glasses. The award.
Yeah, the Sidney Taylor Award.
And Sidney Taylor is All of a Kind Family.
Yes, correct. So
which I also read until they fell apart when I was a kid and then taped them back together. Yes. One of my favorite series.
Yes, so the Sidney Taylor Awards are named after Sidney Taylor. Right. And they have become the biggest Jewish Children's Book Award every year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
So that was a thrill because obviously you write these things, you don't expect awards, but that was something that when the book came out, and then award season comes around, there's a lot of awards that are given out at the same time in January of every year, and they're all affiliated with the American Library Association. So the ALA Awards, it's a big deal. It's almost like the Oscars, right? So the Jewish Awards is a whole category, and it was getting some buzz already in the couple of months before. So I was hoping, but not wanting to believe it, and so when it won, it was a huge thrill. It also a week later won the National Jewish Book Award, and so that was to me my first Jewish story being able to win those awards. It was really so gratifying, and in a lot of ways, it sort of reduced a little bit of the imposter syndrome that I have always had, and I think this is one of the things.
We can talk about that.
I was gonna say when you first asked me to be on this podcast, I was super confused at first because I was looking at all the other guests you've had. I was like, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a trauma specialist or a mental health.
You are an artiste. You are a brilliant artist with an unbelievable story.
Thank you. But I was sort of scraping, trying to figure out how can I bring something that's more in the realm of your profession, and I thought imposter syndrome is something we can absolutely talk about. As a convert and as an author, it's something that's so common.
And I'm thinking you're bringing insane spirituality and meaning and acceptance and diversity and everything that we stand for in the most gorgeous way. First of all, just you're the inspiration. but and look what you've done and how you've translated that. These books are.
You're too kind.
No, they're. I'm not. They're fabulous. This is fabulous, and
I have to say, like, I can never ever take any credit for the illustrations, because that's not what I do. We always have like illustrators who are professionals, and the illustrator for this book is fascinating as well. Lynn Scurfield is Chinese, but
get this book. These are amazing. Yeah.
Also has Jewish family.
Oh, really?
So like, also it has the both sides, and that was something that was fascinating when we were working on this book together.
So this book really, I think, ties it together, because you illustrate the traditions of the Chinese culture and the traditions of the Jewish, right?
Yes.
The firecrackers and the shofar.
Yeah.
The color red and or the getting rid of the getting rid of the
tashlit and sweeping. Yeah.
And the sweeping.
Yeah.
And then of course my favorite, of course, was the apple and honey, which is good, and the long noodle.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, I want long noodles.
Yes.
Long noodles to symbolize
Fantastic.
longevity. And I'm a pasta addict, and I'm like, wait, where do I get long noodles? I must get some long noodles.
It's amazing. Yeah. The food part of it is like everybody's favorite. You know,
of course.
It's like, it's.
Here it is.
I remember when when I wrote the manuscript, there were a lot of these parallels, right? I was looking for foods that matched up as far as thematic like connection. And the editor was like, I love this, but there's just so much here that we can't fit it all in. How are we going to do this? So we decided to just have them all on this massive table, like the Jewish side and the Chinese side. And we were able to fit it all in. But like, if we had more space, we would have given each pairing like its own spread to really like explore. But a picture book is limited to like 40 pages at the maximum. So yeah.
So this was also very interesting. The tray with the fruit and the nuts, tray of togetherness, and it's 6 or 8.
6 or 8, because the words are right.
What are the words?
So the words so look is 6, and it phonetically sounds like the Chinese word for prosperity. And 8 is bat, and it is also another word that means like, you know, fortune and prosperity. So there's a lot of these similar to the simanim on the Jewish side. Like there's like either the name of it or like some sort of characteristic of the food will like refer to some sort of auspicious thing that you want for the new year. So
so cool.
That's one of the things that I loved as I was making a list of all the parallels, you know, like the simanim and like the things about also like tangerines. Tangerines in Chinese are called gum, and gum is also the word gold in Chinese. So like that's why you have tangerines all over the house on Chinese New Year. Yeah. So just stuff like that is fantastic.
So I have 2 thoughts. The first one I was going to share with you. My husband works with a physician who told him he's into gematria and into all the letters having numerical value, which I am very big into. Everything I do is like, wait, 1 + 3 equals. I'm totally into it. So my husband gave him a book. He just gave him a very basic book on this Jewish concept of gematria. He's an Indian doctor. I think he's Hindu. He is so all over it. My husband said he just keeps cornering him in the hallway and like asking him not medical questions to talk about, but gematria questions. Like, what is this and what is this and what does this mean? So, but 8 in Judaism is incredibly special.
Yes.
It's called Mila Min HaTeva, right? It's above the natural order of things.
Right.
So I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Really.
There's so many parallels. Yeah. It's and it was so much so that we couldn't fit everything in. I mean, there's a lot of things we couldn't even get into the whole like how do you wish somebody a new year in Chinese and Judaism. Like we just didn't have the room for it. So there's a lot that didn't make it into the book.
So not that I want to put anything else on your incredibly busy plate, but a cookbook?
I mean, that assumes that I know how to cook. I mean, like maybe if I get my wife to help out,
a recipe book, like with all the wonderful
I think that
Chinese.
would be wonderful. Yeah, I think get my wife and my mom to collaborate.
Okay.
I think that could work.
Oh, you got it. You got it. So this was incredibly stunning. I just loved this,
Thank you so much.
I learned so many things. But the 2 different names for the 2 grandparents.
Yes,
the mother's grandparents
maternal
are
versus
called,
paternal.
right.
Yeah,
So the mothers are called.
The mother's side. So I'm going to get this mixed up.
Wait, I'll find a few.
On the father's side, it's Mama and Yeye.
Okay.
On the mother's side is Gong Gong and Papa. Yeah. Yeah, and it's just it makes it a little bit easier because like then you know exactly what you're talking about rather than just grandma and grandpa because that could be either side. So
So here with us, a lot of people do like Bubby and Zaidi, and then
on
Saba and Savta, or Omi and Opa. Right. So we have that here too. Another one.
Yes.
Okay. And now we come to
A Taste of Home.
A Taste of Home.
Yes.
Which was also now okay. Wait, I have to talk. So this clearly for me, this was you.
So
I thought like this is definitely
not exactly,
like,
not
okay.
exactly. Yeah. So
God, I'm a terrible therapist.
No. First of all, there are no wrong answers in therapy, right? I mean, like
Exactly. Thank you. Thanks for
so-
making me feel better.
Of course, yeah. No, I clearly at the beginning wanted to make sure that he was like Jewish, number one.
Okay.
Not necessarily Asian, because there was another character in the book that's Asian. So,
Right.
so I wanted each character to represent a different neighborhood. So he is the representative of the Jewish neighborhood on the
Right.
Lower East Side.
Right.
So he's Caucasian because like I think that's just sort of like what you expect. And
Okay.
and then there's the girl from Chinatown who's Chinese. So like I wanted to make sure that those were separated. So so I don't think I necessarily identify more with him. I think I probably identified more with the girl, if anything, because like I knew Chinatown very well growing up. But I also got to know the Lower East Side, the Jewish side, a lot when I was becoming Jewish. And actually, my very first date with my wife was on the Lower East Side.
Oh, really?
That's where I met her. Yeah.
Gus's Pickles?
No, it was a coffee shop that I don't think is there anymore. But yeah, we keep meaning to go back and see if the coffee shop's still there.
Yeah, pickles might not be the best first date.
Oh,
food,
no,
but-
I wouldn't
but
think
okay,
so. Yeah,
you wouldn't think-
yeah.
But this, first of all, you say the Lower East Side, you think Jewish, like you think. Wait, when you hear the Lower East Side, you think.
I think Jewish. Yeah.
When I hear the Lower East Side, I think Chinese.
Right. So
I don't-
the Chinatown has grown and sort of like subsumed a lot of the Lower East Side that used to be Jewish. But when I was researching this, I mean, like people just say sort of like loosely Lower East Side to include a lot of the cultural neighborhoods there, like including like Little Italy.
Right.
But it's really it's sort of nebulous exactly what it means. In fact, Little India is not technically part of the Lower East Side. It's I think like East Village or something. It's basically it's close, but it's not exactly considered Lower East Side. If you try to find a map of Lower East Side, like there's no consensus about what the borders are. It just sort of is.
Right.
So, but the idea is like it's just like all of these little pockets of immigrants that settled in this area, very close together, and the fact that you can walk down the street and within a couple of blocks you could see like all of these different types of foods from
Right.
all over the world. That to me was I always remember growing up going to Chinatown and like a few blocks over there's a bunch of bagel shops and like so like that to me was just something that was just so fascinating and how great would it be to follow like a group of friends, you know, like
Right.
walking around and introducing each other to their
You could put the long
cuisines.
noodles in a bagel.
Exactly, right,
That's
yes.
my type of sandwich.
For sure.
Carb and carb and carb. That
Yes.
sounds. So I read this and again, like maybe my mind just goes. Did you ever see Fiddler on the Roof?
You know what? I don't know if this makes me a bad Jew. I've not seen it.
Don't know why I didn't see it if I
I'm
was older.
very,
That's fine.
very aware of it, and I know the story, but I've never seen it.
Okay, so the last song is "Fiddler on the Roof." Everybody likes it because it's timeless. The
Yeah.
same problems they had back in the
Right.
whatever. We're doing the same thing now. It's just that's the weepy part. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And so they get pushed out of their home, and they're in exile, and they have to leave, like because the czar, and there's going to be something. They have to quickly pack up and get out. And so the town that they're living in, it's called Anatevka. And so the last song is the song about Anatevka, and the words are, so, you know, what is a town? What is a home? Is it a pot? Is it a pan? Is it a piece of bread? They start naming all these household items, right? It's just a town. What's the difference, right? It's a broom. It's a coat. It's things. And then, of course, at the end of the song, it's like, no, it's the people.
I'm so glad I didn't see it because if I had seen it, I would have been like, oh gosh, they're going to think I'm ripping this off.
No, not at all. But when I was reading this, I was like, this is the story of Anatevka, right?
Yeah.
It just, it was so beautiful. I'm telling you, every one of your books, I teared up. I'm like, God, they're so meaningful. So now you have to go watch Fiddler on the Roof.
Yes, absolutely.
And see the connections.
Yes.
So do you still feel like, you kind of said it before, you said, I walk in the room and you know, everybody just stops and stares, like the old E.F. Hutton commercial for insurance. Like when E.F.
Right.
Hutton talks, people listen.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? How does that make you feel?
So it's interesting because like most places that I walk into now, like I'm known, so like it's not even something that I'm aware of. But early on, I think it was more something that I was hyper aware of, and it was fine because like I understood. I mean, like I also grew up in Westchester, like not even in a Jewish context. I was one of only like 2 Asian families in my town. It was a largely white town, so I'm used to being like the sort of like the one like Asian person in a room. So like that didn't really faze me, but I think in a lot of ways it was an advantage, especially when you're going through conversion, because I get this a lot where people say that like they either converted or became more religious later on, and they're Caucasian, and so like they feel a little bit lost because they go into a new place and nobody knows that they're new or that they need help, and so they feel like a little bit unseen. Whereas if I walk into a room that I've never been to, like people will just flock over and say, "Hey, like are you new here?" Like so, like I think that in a lot of ways it served me well because it sort of was a very clear sign that like I am not from here, and people generally are very friendly, and they wanted to make sure that I was okay. So like that was actually really great. I still get, like in places that I haven't been to, if I walk in, like people, especially kids, like little kids, because they don't know any better. But it doesn't bother me. Like I think it's
It bothers me.
But I think it's
This is
the
not
same
about me. I get it, but
Right,
it bothers. This definitely bothers me.
I think understanding that a lot of like their experience growing up, like generally speaking, Orthodox communities are pretty insular and pretty homogenous. Like you're not seeing a lot of diversity there. So like I get it. Like and I have kids now, and like when you show
beautiful children.
Thank you so much. I think so.
No. Beautiful, adorable children.
Thank you.
Fabulous.
Thank you. They get it from their mother. But I'm very conscious of the fact that like when you show a kid something completely new, like they're just gonna stare at it, and like it's just sort of what they do, and there's no malice in there. It's curiosity, which is fine, and like I just sort of take it that way because I can't be. There are people that like become bitter over it, like I can't be that. I don't have the bandwidth for that kind of thinking. So I just sort of take it in stride, and it's fine. Like it's and I've like the reality is there is going to be like sort of unconscious racism that happens, and it's never malicious or rarely malicious. But I did write an article a couple of years ago for Aish about unconscious racism in the Jewish community, and it was largely because the thing that spurred that on was my wife was actually at a school event where they had brought in an outside speaker, and the speaker made a joke, and the joke was about like Asian kids in schools, and everybody laughed, but like he didn't know obviously that there's people in the audience who have Asian kids, so that level of like it wasn't malicious, but it was insensitive, and so I reached out to the speaker. Didn't get a great response, and like that sort of like spurred me to write this article, not as a way to like put him on blast, like I didn't mention his name, but like just to put out my feelings of like it's one thing for me to experience it, like I can handle it. I don't want my kids to have to experience it. So like when it started affecting my kids is when I decided I should say something, and I have a platform. Like I can not necessarily a platform. I feel like I can communicate my thoughts in a way that people will at least understand where I'm coming from. So so I decided to use that, and it was very well received. I think it's interesting. Like you look at the comments section on any article, you're gonna get like both sides of the internet, right? The ugly side and like the beautiful side, and this is no different. Like a topic as polarizing as racism, like you're gonna get people coming out of the woodwork saying you're oversensitive, you're being reverse racist, like all this stuff, and like that was shocking, but also not surprising. But for the most part, the comments were so beautiful and so supportive, and it gave me a lot of hope and optimism that like we can get there. I think that as a people, we're still. There's a long way to go, but
so that's the next question after this question. So when it came time to the all wonderful matchmaking system in our community, which don't get me started, we'll be here till 7:00 tonight. So what was that like? Because even for the most mainstream, follow the monopoly board for generations back, and it can be challenging. How about that?
For sure, yeah. I knew right after I converted that I was not ready to date, and so I got advice and counsel on that to the effect of like, yeah, you should give it a couple of years because like you're not fully yourself yet. Like you just took on this complete lifestyle change, and you got to find yourself before you can find someone else. So it was a couple of years of me just sort of getting comfortable and getting used to like what it means to be Jewish. And when I started dating, I knew right away that I did not want to go to a shadchan. I did not want to go with a professional matchmaker because now they perform a service that's valuable and it works in a lot of cases, but it also doesn't work in a lot of cases. And I think for a situation like mine, I think I maybe met with one once, but like it never went anywhere. And I don't think I ever went on a date that was set up by a shadchan because somebody who is like me is not going to get matched up with I guess the way to put it is, a lot of matchmakers will have sort of like their list of people that are like the trouble cases, like the people that they have not had success in matching up, and so the initial instinct is, okay, he's Asian, he's a convert, let's put him in that list because like he's never gonna get matched up with like a mainstream like FFB like from birth person. So I did not want to have to deal with that, so I did not, and I always thought that the best way to get matched up in this interesting dating system that we have is to be set up by mutual friends because they know you. That they're coming from a place of, I know this person, I know like what their strengths and weaknesses are, and I can accurately determine, or more accurately determine, whether this is going to be a match from the beginning. So so that's how it happened. It was friends of mine who were really good friends with friends of my wife, and they made the match. They had the idea and they set us up, and that was how it happened. So I'm very grateful for both families, but also it was just sort of like ultimately I did marry an FFB girl, so you never know. But like I think to set myself up for success, I knew that I wanted to go that route.
My very good friend made your engagement party, Danielle and Ralph Zimmerman, right?
Yeah, sure.
Right. You're very worked on because I hear you talk, and I'm the therapist, and I hear you say like, well, I was going to be put into the problem category, which is just so triggering for me.
Yeah.
Nobody is a problem.
Right.
Everybody is,
Right.
And I just.
To be clear, that's not what I think. Like,
No, yeah, great.
Yeah, right.
But I'm saying, but even that
Yeah.
there's like this, not, of course it's not what you think or I
Right.
think, but that there's in this category
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
okay, these are the problem cases.
Yeah.
I just finished teaching a class on diversity. I teach a class on diversity in a social work school. We go through all the everybody's American Indian and the Asian community, and the Black community, and the Latinx community, and the whole thing. And so the students get to do what they call open mic and kind of present whatever they want. And so a student actually presented on her relative who's blind and the discrimination this blind girl faced growing up.
Yeah.
A little bit in the community and definitely outside the community, how people just don't know how to treat
Sure.
people who have disabilities or are handicapped. I was talking about it with my husband, and he actually, right away, he pulled up a video from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, which had just happened to come on his phone. He gets like a daily video thing. And it's a family talking about they have a child who's blind and has a lot of disabilities, a little bit autistic, something, and they took him to the Rebbe for a blessing, right? And the kid's like all over the place. He's just running, jumping, doing, and the Rebbe keeps giving him nickels, and he keeps throwing the nickels and throwing the nickels. And the father said they were dead embarrassed in front of this huge, great Rebbe, and he's trying to placate the kid. He keeps giving him one nickel after another. The kid's tossing him hard against the wall on the floor. And they apologized to the Rebbe. They said, "We're so sorry." The Rebbe said, "Why are you sorry?" He said, "Do you see, this is a strength that this child has." And he said, the Rebbe said, "There's no such thing as a disability. No one is disabled." He said, "God gave strength to everybody, and he gave special strength to other people." And I was like, okay, this is what we need. So that there's this category. So what can we do better? What can we as a community do to the fabulous yous of the world? We're not fabulous. You're fabulous.
Well, thank you. I don't, but I think, and again, I have to say that I've always been very, like, my experience in the Jewish world has been very charmed. Like I found a great community in Passaic, and I found families that are fantastic, and they took me in, and they really sort of like, did so much for me. The Zimmermans, another family that I've known
just
forever.
This hour conversation I've had, this is not difficult. You can move in right now. I mean, you bring your wife and children. You are not. You are the most low maintenance person
Right.
I've ever met.
I don't feel like necessarily qualified to speak on like what can be done for people that are like marginalized. Because I never felt marginalized. Like even in the dating world, like I felt like I didn't go the shotgun route. So I was not being set up with like problem cases. I was being set up with great girls. Like they, so like I never had any issues with that. I think what I can say from the perspective of everybody else is, which and I include myself in this category, is I think recognizing, and it's easier for me to recognize, I guess, because I am also different, but recognizing that difference is not bad, and just because something doesn't look like everything else doesn't mean that it needs to also be paired up with something that's similar. Like right. That's. My wife and I on the surface would not be a natural match. Like she grew up Orthodox. like in all these Midwestern communities, and like there was no. If you were to tell her like as like a girl, like a little girl, that she would eventually marry like an Asian convert, like she would have been like, what? But like I do remember, when I was dating, there were a couple of times where I was suggested to be matched up with like another Asian like convert, and I was like, I don't want that because it's not. That shouldn't be what you're using as your
Parameter.
criteria.
Right.
And so I think that's really the essence of the person, not the surface details, whatever they may be. And surface details is not right because that makes it seem like not substantive. But I think recognizing that people are like at their core who they are, and try to match people based on that, not based on
the exteriors.
Exactly right. Yeah.
When you said that if they would have told your wife at 18 she would marry an Asian convert, I started laughing because I do a fair number of public speaking and I want to increase that. And one of the lines I always use is, if you would have told me at 18 where I'd be today,
Yeah.
I don't know if I would burst out laughing or burst out crying.
Right.
Like, I'm just not quite sure where I'd go with that, but I definitely had like a roadmap at 18.
Yes, yes.
And none of it happened. None of it.
I don't
Like,
think
all,
anybody,
check, no.
It's the rare case for anybody to be where they expected to be at 18. I don't think.
So it's so now I get to be a groupie, and you get to. I'm a real groupie, and I'm a great groupie. I'm a loud groupie. I'm an obnoxious groupie.
I love that, and I appreciate that.
And so now you can just sign. So I'm
For sure. One thing that I learned when I first started doing this author thing is there is a expected place to sign.
Oh,
within
really?
Each book. Yeah. Generally, you do it on the title page next to your name.
Great.
Yeah. So the problem is a lot of times there's not a lot of space. So I like to write a little message as well. So can I make these out to
Debbie?
Debbie.
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
Debbie, two B's, I-E.
Debbie.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, wow. And it's on camera. This is so
Yeah.
exciting. Oh, wow. That's a great signature.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
wow.
you. There's a little bit of that you have to perfect it. Like it takes a while
Oh,
to
that
figure
is a
out.
beautiful signature.
For the first couple of signatures I ever did, it's a different signature because I realized that was my legal signature. So that's what I sign checks with and stuff. So I shouldn't be using that. So yeah, I decided to change it, come up with something new.
This is very architectural, this signature. Right?
So my sister is an interior designer.
Oh, okay.
So like that's
There you go.
it runs in the family.
There you go. Wow, that is distinct. I love that. Nobody's ever going to be able to forge anything
That's
for you.
right. That's right. Make it as messy as possible. That's how
Beautiful. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for getting these.
Oh, God. I'm getting the other three. I wrote them down. I'm going to have a shelf of R.E.A. books. I'm very excited.
I'm still early enough in this career that like it's still a thrill for me that anybody has my books on their shelves. Like
That's
it's
great.
It's a lot of fun.
You know, I understand that because I've so far written my dissertation, and I'm actually writing a book, and I want to send it to you to see if it has any merit. I'm like, totally plugging myself now. And so when people say it, and they go, "Oh, we quoted your dissertation," I'm like, "You read it? Really? That's so nice of you."
That never gets old. That's great.
I'm like, "You really read it?" They're like, "Yeah, it was really good." I'm like, "I cannot believe somebody read it." Like, and
that's
didn't
like
fall asleep in the middle.
Well,
like,
that's
really?
like a bigger commitment to read a dissertation. Like how many pages is that? That's
200 and something.
Yeah.
I mean,
so like a picture
yeah.
book is like
Well,
30
they
something
read
pages.
sections. They pull the
Yeah,
section,
yeah.
but I'm always so excited. I'm like, I cannot believe you read it. Oh, thank you. So, final question: what's next? Because if you ask me, I have a list of, like, no pressure. But I'm
Yes.
just thinking we could do this and this and this. What's next?
So in the book world or just in general?
Your world, your goals, your
Sure.
continued incredible mark on everybody.
I think it's in the book world. I have a bunch of books coming out in the next few years. I'm very, very lucky. So my 7th book is coming out in July, and then I've got
Writing.
7 more coming after in the next 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So, and one of them that I'm working on right now is actually very exciting. So these are all picture books, meaning they're for ages 4 to 8. Middle grade is for like slightly older kids. I'm writing a middle grade nonfiction anthology. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about it because it hasn't been announced yet, but it's basically about rabbis, famous rabbis. So I'm doing like short biographies of famous rabbis. So I'm working on that right now. That'll be out next year. And so very excited about that.
Wow.
And other than that, it's just like I found that there's just not a lot of time these days. We've got 4 kids. The youngest is about to turn 3. So the oldest is about to be bar mitzvah in a couple of years. So
No way, really?
yeah. So he's 11 now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we're gearing up for that. So It's busy, and I don't have a whole lot of time for writing anymore, but I try to scratch and claw what I can. But yeah, I think most of my focus now is just on being a dad and a husband, and also working, because like,
Money.
these books don't pay enough
Yeah.
for, tuition
Right.
and mortgage and things like that. So I do have my day job that I have to
Also
keep plugging
attend to,
away, but
right.
like, and I love it, but it's it's work. So it's that's really where I'm at right now. But like I do, as I'm exploring more of like, being an author, and specifically a Jewish author, I think that's something that I definitely want to make sure that I'm putting a lot of attention to, because it's these days, like the chatter now is about how hard it is to get Jewish stories published. Most of the publishers, like not the Jewish publishers, but most of the mainstream publishers are a little skittish right now as far as Jewish
yeah,
stories. So, making sure that we can continue to bring these stories to life, I think, is very important. So that's what we're working on.
I just want to tell you, this was an incredible hour. I want to wish you only continued success. Please, please keep writing, keep talking, this is so inspirational.
Thank you
Will
so
you
much.
come back?
Absolutely.
Part
This
two,
has been
part
such
three?
a pleasure. And yeah, we've got so much more to talk about.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us on the Pink Elephant podcast, and we'll see you soon.